So what's it like? What's it like to work inside of your business? What's the culture? This is such an important quality conversation. I remember one day that I was working inside of a business and I walked through the property management team and there's this A4 frame, and in the center of the A4 frame it says, "No backbiting." And I remember looking at the director. I said to him, "What's that about?" He goes, "Oh, we had a previous management consultant that said that everyone in here just didn't really support each other, so we should put a sign up that said no backbiting to remind people not to kind of stab each other in the back." And I was like, wow, this is the definition of culture around what actually happens on the inside of an organization. Because if you get clear about what culture looks like, then you actually need to get really clear about how you actually support it. Now, inside of any business today, we need to really define what that culture is. Now, I can define the culture pretty quickly because I go and ask the receptionist, I go and ask the lead salesperson, I go and ask the property manager, I go and have a quick chat to the person inside of leasing, and I get really clear about, is this an organization that is a learn-it-all culture, or is this an organization that is a know-it-all culture? And this is one of the great challenges, is that in life, you get out what you put in. And sometimes we meet people that are already on a plateau and they have no view of actually going to a bigger, brighter, and better future, even if that means working less hours to produce exactly the same results. Whatever the definition of success is, culture is really critical. Now, inside of our business, we wanted to make sure that we had a culture that was really clearly defined. One that was all about performing at our absolute best in the way that we went to work with people. One that was always about innovating and constantly improving. One that was always about making sure that we would work free of any time or space. So it didn't matter if I was on different time zones or in different parts of the world, I could be working to actually go to produce my results. One where we really fundamentally believed in people and their dreams. And then also to having this whole conversation that we wanted to make sure that we had a culture where we renewed energy. So that once my staff go home, once they're finished for the day, they don't hear from me again. They don't hear from me over the course of the weekend unless there's something that's really important at a high level of emergency. Why is this so important? Because if you don't typify culture, then ultimately it already does exist, but it's just not yet typified. And this is the great challenge, that this is where you get a runaway culture, where ultimately it's going in a completely the opposite direction to directly where you actually want it to go. Now, you need to get really intentional, and the way that you get intentional about building a culture is about making sure that you have the systems and the people and the processes in play that actually support that cultural environment. So this is a basic idea. We turn up to training and someone's serving scones at morning tea. We know straight away there's just a bit of a view that it's not really about health right now. All of a sudden we get to the lunch bit and all of a sudden there's a whole heap of fish and chips and deep fried foods and party pies. And that tells me straight away there's no view about really making sure that our people eat in a really healthy way. Now, this sort of conversation is so critically important because your culture determines whether or not people stay with you. And also at the back of that, it also determines whether or not people want to make the decision to come and join you. And this is so important because how is that business culture ultimately typified? Is it fun? Is it energetic? Is it driven? Is it youthful? Is it in a position that it's about? Is it creativity? Is it innovation? Or is it stagey? Is it old? Is it negative? Is it once you've reached 20 years here, then you can have an opinion? This is such an important thing to get right. And on the inside of business today, we need to think about the ways that we do it. Here's a couple of things that you can do to rapidly improve culture. Number one, make sure you have a really clear set of values. Work with your team. Get clear about what the values actually need to be. Get everyone inside of the team to rate themselves as a plus, dot, minus on those particular initiatives. And then move into a position around what you can do to be able to support them, to be able to get them to a plus in each of those areas. When you take a value, make sure that you then give some evidence behavior of what it would look like living out this particular value on the inside of the organization. The next conversation is then starting to think about how you have a cultural award. So this whole conversation around that we've got, who's the person who's lived out the values the best? This is such a great conversation where we're giving supportive evidence of people really living it out on the inside of the business. And then making sure that we pay attention to the detail on the little things. At the end of the day, the way that you dot the I's and how you cross the T's determines the success of the business. So if your culture is about family, you're not going to be holding the Christmas party at the Ivy nightclub. And this is such an important conversation that what you're doing here is you're actually getting really clear about how this place actually works. Once you've got the cultural piece right, then you can amplify that. You can do more of it. Now, why is this such an important thing? The moment that you expand from your first office and then you go to the second office, that's where the culture breaks. And if you don't actually have the really right systems in play and have people that really understand what the culture actually looks like, then you can have two cultures existing in exactly the same business. This happens in one office around a sales environment and a property management business. And if we don't get those cultural pieces right, where we're thinking how we can serve the customer in bigger and better ways, we simply just don't win. So how do you do it? Go and spend some time with your people. Get clear about what they think the culture is about. Get clear about if that's what the culture that you really want, and actually start making some changes by getting really clear about the values. So then you can help to amplify the performance of your team and to make sure that you've got a culture that's actually worth copying.